Mark Bishop Show. Truly like a box of chocolates. You never know who you're going to meet. From business, lifestyle, and fun. Here's Mark.
And welcome to another episode of the Mark Bishop Show. You know, the most dangerous days of the year for teen drivers are almost here. So why do teen drivers face greater risk in the months ahead? What can parents do about it? Maybe my special guest can tell us that. Bob Passmore is the Department Vice President of Personal Lines of American Property Casualty Insurance Association. That's the APCIA. And Rebecca Weast is Senior Research Scientist at the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. Comes under the acronym of IIHS. Welcome to you both, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Memorial Day, just days away, right? The clock is ticking on what safety advocates call the 100 deadliest days, the stretch between Memorial Day and Labor Day. For some reason, teen traffic fatalities spike by nearly 26% compared to the rest of the year. So what on earth is the reasoning behind this, Becca? And why do teens have such high crash rates, do you think? More importantly, what can parents do to help to keep their, new drivers safe?
Well, teens are, first and foremost, when they start driving, they're beginners. And I think those of us who have been driving for years take for granted that driving is a complicated thing that you have to learn to do. And teens are still learning to operate a vehicle and navigate traffic of other cars and roadways with signage and, the rules of the road and traffic laws and such. And so as they're learning to do that, they are more prone to errors because they are still learning. They're beginners. And the cost of an error when you are on a roadway with other people is really high. And what parents can do is, starting well before the teen starts driving, is to set a good example, which I know is much easier said than done. But, putting your phone away, not speeding, not driving aggressively, just kind of drive the way that you want your teen to drive eventually. And then when they start driving, when they're driving, doing their supervised practice driving, when they have their permit, just making sure you get a good variety of types of driving in, so that the parent gets to see their teen driving under all sorts of different circumstances, and the teen gets feedback about how they're driving. Once they start driving independently, making sure to continue to check in with the teen as they are driving by themselves, not just, let them off the leash to go and drive as they will. Make sure that you check in every so often and see that they're not developing any bad habits, nip those bad habits in the bud and to reinforce the good ones.
Right. Good advice on that, and you've got some more tips for us. What was I going to say? 60% of the time, apparently, seconds before a crash, teen drivers are distracted. I see some of these ads on television, and they're as happy as Larry in the back of the car in the front, messing around with the driver. To me, that's just a massive put-off. It really is. Never mind phones while you're driving. So what about dangerous driving behavior? What do you think about that?
Well, distracted and aggressive driving remains an epidemic on our roadways. The risks certainly increase during the summer months when you got more people traveling, schools are out, roads are busier with vacation traffic, and of course those teen drivers out there with less structured days create kind of a perfect storm for these kinds of crashes. Distracted driving, though, is preventable, and that's by all of us as drivers staying focused behind the wheel. That's really the simplest and most important thing that anyone can do to protect themselves, their passengers, and everybody else on the road.
Well, Bob, it seems that, let me ask you, how big of a problem is really distracted driving then, especially during these busy summer months for some reason? Absolutely right.
It's definitely a problem for all drivers. I mean, we all see it just by driving around. Probably any trip you make, you're probably going to see somebody that's particularly manipulating a device. But it's really not just manipulating your phone or using it on a call or things like that. A lot of other things we can do can be distracting. Working with your radio, your infotainment system. Talking to your passengers can be distracting. It's important to be cognizant of those things and make sure that you pay attention to the most important task that you're engaged in at that moment, and that is making sure you're focused behind the wheel and in control and maintaining proper lookout for your vehicle and other things that are going on the road in front of you.
Becca, what specific rules do you think parents should set for new drivers? This is before handing over the keys.
Yeah, so I think it's really important for parents to sit down and make their expectations and the rules explicit before their kid starts driving. And the great place to start is being very clear with your state's specific graduated driver licensing laws. So every state puts limits on what teens can do, especially when they start driving independently. I like this as a baseline, and then parents can kind of add on as they see things that their teen especially needs support or more guidance with. So the specifics here, especially again with independent driving, are curfew limits. So driving while you're tired is dangerous for anybody. It's especially dangerous for beginners, especially dangerous for teens. So keeping teens from driving super late at night or super early in the morning. And then preventing teens from driving with a lot of peers in the car. So teens, one of the biggest risk factors for teens in crashes is having other teenagers in the car with no adult to supervise and kind of keep things under control.
Yeah, right.
Some states allow teens to have one, maybe two other teens in the car while they're driving. I would strongly suggest that parents just not allow that at all because it is such a big risk factor.
Well, Bob, I want to ask you, on the topic of parents, what should they know about crash avoidance technologies? And, where can they find this sort of stuff out for teens, to find out a lot more?
Yeah. Well, today's vehicles offer more advanced safety technology than ever before, and many of them have a lot of potential to reduce accidents and keep us keep us out of accidents when used properly. But for parents and teen drivers, it's important to remember that these technologies provide an additional layer of support while young drivers are gaining experience behind the wheel. But it's important for every driver, including teen drivers, to understand that these systems are just that. They're assistance systems. They don't replace attentive driving. Drivers need to stay engaged, alert, and focused on the road at all times. It's also important to understand that the limitations of some of these technologies, weather conditions, poor visibility, faded lane markings, and blocked sensors can all affect their performance. So again, these things are good support, good, as Becca said, good scaffolding for drivers, but there's really no substitute for an engaged and attentive driver. That's the best safety tool there is.
Yeah, there's a couple of website addresses. I think you should note them down, folks, particularly for teen driver safety. The first one is APCI.org, APCI.org. There's a lot of stuff on there to get to, all right? And there's another one coming up, which is IIHS.org. /teens. Okay, /teens. And the other one, of course, was /teen driver safety, because a lot of answers there. Not only that, you want to keep money down. Drivers, especially those with new teen drivers in the household, they can keep insurance rates down. So you need to talk to your insurer about safe driving incentives. You'd agree with that, Bob?
I absolutely do. Adding a teen driver to the policy is going to, likely it's going to increase your cost because of the reputation and of young drivers and more likely to get into a crash. But it's also an opportunity. It's actually, when you're adding a driver, it's actually a really good time to shop around for insurance. Uh-huh. Every company looks at, assesses risk a little bit differently, and you may find that you may be able to get a better price with a different company. But you can also use that as a platform to talk to your current insurance agent about what your coverages are and what other savings opportunities there might be that you could take advantage of. Something else to consider is a usage-based or telematics insurance program, which tracks how you drive. You usually get a discount just for signing up, but it also provides feedback on a ride-by-ride basis on how you're driving, and it can be quite a wake-up call for people who first sign up. It also provides a really good platform for discussing with your teen how they're actually driving, because it would show like where they were speeding and when they were using their phone and when they were, and other things like that. So that's a good tool to save money and for having those discussions with your teen.
My word, what a good idea, sprung. Mm. Okay, folks, safety tips, you can never get too many of them. APCI.org /teen driver safety. That's the Institute, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, IIHS. That's that IIHS.org/teens. Two good sites there, but they'll both be up on my site anyway, and good to sit down with a cup of joe and have a good read. Get your kids to read it. That's important. You want them around a long time. Special guest, Rebecca Weast, Senior Research Scientist, finds out all the ins and outs at the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, IIHS, and of course Bob Passmore, the Department Vice President, Personal Lines of American Property Casualty Insurance Association. Thank you, people. Good on you. You do a great job. And let's hope this summer is a little better than last, eh?
Let's hope.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Join us again for another episode of The Mark Bishop Show. It's a production of Mark Bishop Media.